Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. Today we are going to talk about India's pharmacy sector. Now, a lot has been happening in India's e-pharmacy and offline pharmacy worlds. If you have been following MediaNama's coverage in the last few days, there have been coverage of how Snapdeal has been caught in some cases regarding their sale of a drug called Suhagra 100 and whether they are allowed to do so. There is the e-pharmacy related drugs, medical devices, and cosmetics bill that is soon going to come out going to be tabled in the parliament. And of course, offline pharmacies also have their inputs to give about how e-pharmacies should be regulated, how they should be viewed, first of all, before all of this is, sort of the bill is passed and the rules that I think have been pending since 2018, they need to be amended and there needs to be some discussion along those lines as well. So, to sort of make sense of everything that is happening in this sector, today we have South Chemist and Distributors Association's legal head, Yash Aggarwal, with us. He'll be talking to us about what's happening over here and how we should go ahead from here. So, Yash, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for calling us.
So Yash, the first thing I want to ask you is taking it from Snapdeal's argument. They said that if they see themselves as social intermediaries and therefore they are protected under this concept of safe harbor, right? Now, a lot of e-pharmacies, because there is no set regulation in India yet regarding e-pharmacies, they also argue that they are social, like they're intermediaries of sort and they're protected under safe harbor. How do you take this? Like, would you say that e-pharmacies are intermediaries? And if not, what would you call them? How should they be regulated?
No, I don't think so. E-pharmacies are intermediaries. That's one. Secondly, even if they call themselves intermediaries are not really allowed in the regulation of drugs, the distribution of drugs. Distribution of drugs is governed by the Drug and Cosmetic Acts, which might be soon replaced by the new bill that is in the parliament. But at this moment, yes, it is under the DNC Act. So DNC Act is very clear. It's a licensed activity. Any selling of drugs, stocking, even offer to sell is a licensed activity. So there's no room for any intermediary in the business. Anybody who wants to deal, or even suppose I have a XYZ website, I want to offer to sell a drug on my website, I need to have a regulated license for it. So just the going under the garb that we are intermediaries and we are covered in the IT Act does not suffice. And you just that argument is really, there's nothing but it's a sham. You cannot have that argument saying that okay, we are covered in the IT Act and not in the DNC Act. I mean, intermediaries, no, it doesn't work that way. For medicines, you have to have a license. And at this moment, till now, there is no license for online selling of drugs. On that basis, the Honorable High Court of Delhi gave an injunction on the online selling of medicines in 2018. That was the premise of it. So when there is no license for the online selling of drugs, there is no intermediaries, there's nothing. And people might say the online pharmacies, e-pharmacies might say that we are intermediaries, but that is not a valid argument. No.
But do you feel that the inclusion of big businesses like Snapdeal or even Tata at times kind of complicates this argument?
I'm sorry.
Do you feel that the inclusion of like the entering of Snapdeal or Tata businesses sort of complicates this argument because they say that we are not originally this, but then we are providing this and we are following our intermediary regulations?
See, whoever want to enter, that's fine. Tata's have entered, Reliance have entered, that's fine. But just being a big name does not give you a license to do an unlicensed activity.
Mm-hmm.
So, primarily because I'm a big business house doesn't mean I can do something illegal. And yes, like I explained, intermediaries are not allowed in the DNC Act. And primarily, the distribution of drugs is governed by the Drug and Cosmetics Act and not IT Act.
Right.
So, DNC Act is the Bible or the Gita or the Constitution for the sale manufacture of drugs in India. And that has to be followed.
Mm. So when the amendments were first introduced, it was 2018, if I'm not wrong, that drugs and cosmetics rules, they suggested the amendments. And I think they had talked about registration and licensing for e-pharmacies. But I think even the SCDA had sent in their comments saying that they were not satisfied with the amendments. So can you like summarize what exactly were the contentions there?
Yes. So 2018, I think it was August 2018, the Ministry of Health came out with the draft
Mm-hmm.
notification for the regulation of the drugs sold over the internet.
Hmm.
Now, it is very surprising, that in 2018 they came out with notification, which we thought was, I should not be using this word, but it was not really, it was a rubbish, because they came out with rules which were totally one-sided, favoring the e-pharmacies, giving them all the leeway. Even in fact, they didn't require a license to be a e-pharmacy, a mere registration, like you just mentioned, could do for it. And apparently, it was right contrary, absolutely 180 degrees contrary to the 2016 report. There was a subcommittee report that came out in 2016 by the Ministry of Health, Government of India.
But if I can interrupt you there, there was a, provision about registration in the amendments, correct?
Yes, but there's no the DNC Act, not about
Hmm.
the rules, but the Act does
Hmm.
not allow any provision for any registration. There has to be a compulsory license.
All
So
right.
that was our argument on that point when we went to the ministry, that the registration cannot be allowed because it is not mentioned anywhere in the Act. It has to be only compulsory licensing.
Mm-hmm.
And what just coming back to the point I was mentioning, in 2016, the subcommittee report came out for the it was for the e-pharmacies and the feasibility of e-pharmacies in India. And that report was actually, as it was a fabulous report because it was very clear on the rules in the DNC Act. And it was very clear that the in the current form, the way e-pharmacies are working today, it cannot be really allowed in that manner, because then you have the problem of over dispensation, over medication.
Hmm.
And they suggested that the only way e-pharmacy can come into India is once we have the provision of e-prescriptions. An
Right.
e-prescription is not merely a screenshot of a prescription. It is basically a prescription which is issued from a central portal and is redundant when it is dispensed.
Mm-hmm.
So without that, e-pharmacy is an unthinkable concept in our country. And we've also always maintained that we are not against technology as an association. We are not against the advent of technology and the improvement in the technologies. No, we're just against the malpractices which the current e-pharmacies are doing in the garb of giving technology. Really, there is no technology per se.
All right.
You can use the WhatsApp to send prescriptions and get the medication, right? So there's really no technology. There's no infrastructure building the pharmacies are doing right now. There's only the cash burn which they are doing. So this is what we are against.
Okay. I'll come to the e-prescription side in a minute, but then how would you like, do you feel then that the regulations for e-pharmacies and offline pharmacies, how should they differ, or do you feel that they should be the same?
We need to have a level playing field.
Hmm.
So we cannot have different regulations for somebody selling offline and online.
But
We need to have
like,
similar regulations.
but you would agree that like online do function in different ways, like they can cover much more area. So there, I think there was a discussion about the interstate uh, uh, sending of medication and how that would work and whether that should be allowed. So there are these nuances. How would you address those?
So, when you talk about the interstate selling of drugs, there's a
Hmm.
particular reason why it is not allowed. You have to understand the reason. You have to go to the back end of the reason and then understand the logic behind it.
Hmm.
So, if you would know that in 2020, when the COVID started, the
Hmm.
Ministry of Health came out with the door delivery notification, which allowed the neighborhood chemists, mind you,
Hmm.
not the pharmacies, they allowed the neighborhood chemists to deliver in the revenue district and
Hmm.
not outside the revenue district. Before that, there was no provision of home delivery. So
Hmm.
before 2020, 2020, whatever e-pharmacies did were all against the law. That's one. Secondly, when you say that interstate selling of drugs, the problem is that this is not a normal commodity. Medicines are not like shoes or sandals or just a normal commodity which If you get a bad or a spurious one, it might not affect you, right? It is something which is highly regulated. Prescription drugs are highly regulated. And the reason you say that, okay, you have to deliver only in the revenue district is because the person, the patient who gets the medicine and the place where the medicine has come from should be in that district. For example, if being in Delhi, any pharmacy sells medicine in Gujarat, and that Gujarat guy finds out that, okay, the medicine is substandard or spurious, there's a problem with that way that person will go and complain. Will it be Gujarat, or he has to come to Delhi to complain, right?
For an
So,
e-pharmacy, that would be the grievance redressal, right? That the company would have.
and what about the authorities? So, which authority? I might go and say the e-pharmacy, fine, I'm not happy with the medicine. But what if I have to go to a government authority? So I have no idea. I will go to a Gujarat government authority. I have to fly to Delhi and complain here, or send a letter. These things that we are talking about, that these things, when it's not clear for the patient, in the interest of the patient, how can you sell medicines? There's a company in Bangalore which is selling, which apparently appeared on Shark Tank also, and is selling medicines without the wrappers and sending tablets separately. That is placed in Bangalore. If somebody gets in medicine in Delhi and which is not up to the mark, where do I go? I go to my state drug authority. They'll say, okay, we've written a letter to Bangalore. Let us see what do they respond. And it's like a big bureaucracy and red tape. So these things have to be clarified before the e-pharmacy is allowed, and that is the reason. That is the reason why the selling of drugs is not allowed interstate. In fact, even inter-district. Because suppose you live in Navi Mumbai, so if you get a medicine from Navi Mumbai, you can actually go to the person and ask and clarify. Moreover, medicines also, there is a way to dispense medications. Medications they usually come with instructions how to use them. You might get a syrup for UTI, but you don't know how to use it. The pharmacist has to tell you that, you have to mix 1 teaspoon of UTI syrup into half glass of water and drink it twice a day. So that kind of suggestions and recommendation have to be given by the pharmacist. If that pharmacist is in another state, how do I get that consultation? So these are the reasons behind the medicines are not sold outside the district.
Right. So then, what would you suggest that the focus points should be when we are looking at e-pharmacies and regulating them? Like which?
Well, the focus point, yeah.
Go ahead.
So the focus points has to be that, the whole premise of medicine dispensation is on two things: prescription and premises. So any medication has to be dispensed with a prescription. Any scheduled medicine, schedule H, H1, X, whatever it is. So those cannot be dispensed without a prescription. So there has to be first and foremost, there has to be a mechanism to get the e-prescription, not a screenshot, of e-prescription, where when e-pharmacy receives an e-prescription from a patient and they dispenses the medicine, that prescription is redundant and cannot be further dispensed. That is the first thing that has to go in any e-pharmacy. Secondly, is premises. If you know, the home delivered liquor was started for a very short period and then it is now again closed. Now, the same rules, like this is dawa and liquor, so it's like medicinal liquor. So the same rules apply to the medicines. So medicines ka kya hota hai ki you have to store it in a licensed premises. A licensed premises, because the licensed premises has to be checked that the conditions for storages are fine by the drug authorities. And if it's stored elsewhere or dispensed elsewhere, it's not allowed. It's a crime. So these things have to be taken into account before any rules are to be made for e-pharmacies.
All right. But then if we talk about e-prescription, that sort of takes us into Healthstep in a way. So what's your opinion about Healthstep then? Like the idea of there being one platform for all of a person's health data? How do you see that? What are the challenges or the benefits that you see in doing this?
Well, if you have one point where you have all the health data, it has to be government controlled. With the coming of AI, well, that is one of the contention when we went to the authorities and told about the patient security.
Hmm.
Now imagine that one company, a private company with FDI in it,
Hmm.
they have access to your blood reports, they have access to your consultations, they have access to your medicines, they know your allergies, they know your symptoms, they have all data about
Yeah.
you. And when they have this data with the regions, and they have your address, they have your phone number, they have your email IDs, they have your pin codes, they have everything. Now with the AI coming in, I'm not an AI master, but yes, with AI coming in, feeding in this kind of data into AI and getting out output reports can be a catastrophic condition for a country's security. So when you have these kind of platforms where you have all kind of data about every aspect of an individual and a lot of individuals, those data cannot be given into private hands. Those have to be controlled by the government agencies, and the servers have to be in India and with the government access only with the government.
So then, how do you see it impacting the pharmacy sector? Do you see no effect at all, except that maybe you'll have to have like regular conversations with government officials?
You mean to say e-pharmacies or
Both.
no? We are waiting for the new drugs, medical devices, and the cosmetics bill, which is supposed to be introduced in the parliament this month
Yeah.
session. If it does, that bill, that draft came out last year for consultation. We sent our suggestions and everything. And of course, now we don't know what is in the bill. That is confidential. We'll only know once it is passed by the parliament, if it is passed by the parliament. And we hope that the new bill will have these regulations for the betterment of our citizens' health.
But then, so like, how specifically would a health stack affect pharmacies? Like, I think that,
Standalone pharmacies,
yeah.
the offline pharmacies, you mean? Well, it has to have an access. Like for example, like I mentioned, 2016 subcommittee report. It was very clear. That was a beautiful report which gave a proper model, wherein they said that if the e-pharmacies have to come in the country, the way it's going to function is that it's going to have they're going to have a central government portal where the doctor will go log in and make a prescription, and the patient will get a SMS on their that time it was SMS, now it can be WhatsApp or SMS, either ways. And they go to the pharmacy, a standalone offline pharmacy or an online pharmacy, wherever they want to place an order with the particular prescription code. And once the prescription code is dispensed and the medicine has been given to the patient or delivered to the patient, the prescription will be redundant, with the facility that if suppose the person needs 30 tablets and you have only given 10, so yes, 10 will be dispensed and 20 will be balanced. So but it has to be a government owned data center or government owned portal. Like for example, you have for Aadhaar. Now Aadhaar details cannot be given to private hands. Likewise, these kind of data cannot be given to private hands. It has to be government, which have to collaborate then again with the people who dispense the drug, which could be offline, could be online.
All right. Another thing is that, sorry, excuse me. Health data in the previous data protection bills, it was considered sensitive data. The latest last year's bill does not describe it as so, it just calls it data. So there would be like two aspects to this. One would be, do you consider health data to be sensitive data? And if so, then should e-pharmacies or even offline pharmacies have prescriptions, because that would be sensitive data? Like, should they be given access to that data?
Okay, so yes, I believe that the health data is a sensitive data. Secondly, when you say the access to the prescription by the offline pharmacy or the e-pharmacies. Now, a prescription is something which tells your symptoms, your problem, and the medication prescribed. Essentially, those are the part of the prescription. Now, when you come to the offline pharmacies, the reason we say that it's quite secure with the offline pharmacies is because it is fragmented. There are too many of them. Even if I have whatever data I have, is not going to be more than few thousands, right? But when you have only one or two or three players of e-pharmacies in the whole country, then that data is concentrated into just two or three hands. Whereas there are 1.2 million pharmacies, offline pharmacies in our country. Whereas if the data goes in the hand of 1.2 million data points, so then it is fragmented. There is really no collection of data. Yes, the government can have it, right? But obviously, again, the sensitive data, like the data protection bill, I remember we also had some objections to it because they wanted to do a lot of fields which we thought that were not required, like your religious belief and your political inclinations and everything, which was not required. So yeah, even government have to be very sure with the data they have.
All right. So during COVID, I remember this thing happening where even offline pharmacies at times were giving e-services in a way. So they were sort of becoming hybrid. Now, do you feel that these hybrid pharmacies, so to say, should they like be considered should they be under e-pharmacy regulations or should they have regulations of their own? How do you see them? How do you view them?
So, like I said, that you cannot have two benchmarks marks for offline and online. So you
Mm.
need to have a level playing field. So when you come out with the rule have to be applicable to everyone and anyone. If I have an offline pharmacy and I want to become an online pharmacy, a hybrid model like you just mentioned, I it should not be that I have to follow some other directions. I have to take some other licenses. So it has to be one comprehensive guidelines. The license conditions have to come together. Where if suppose offline or online, we both can work together. So it has to be comprehensive. I don't think so. We can have separate conditions for the offline pharmacies and separate for online pharmacies. I'll give you an example. During COVID, if you remember the Arogya Setu app when it was introduced, we had a website called Arogya Setu Mitra, which was launched simultaneously. And we objected to it. In fact, we filed a petition in the Delhi High Court also. And the reason was very simple because we said that the website is biased because they were giving access to the whole country through four e-pharmacies. And the honorable judge who was presiding over the case also asked the same question to the government that why have you given preference to only four e-pharmacies and not the neighborhood chemist? I might not be comfortable in getting my medicines from my e-pharmacy, and I might be more comfortable from a neighborhood chemist. His or her name should be there in the app so I can order to them in my neighborhood rather than going to any e-pharmacy. So this again was the biased thing which happened. So this, like I said, so there have to be comprehensive rules which comes out for both offline and online together.
All right, that makes sense. So going to the recent bill, the sorry, medical devices and drugs and cosmetics bill that is likely to come out this session. What are you hoping? Like you've seen the draft already, so what are you like hoping for it? What are your worries about it? Can you speak a bit about that?
Well, we saw the draft which came out last year, and we had again our reservations around it, and we conveyed it to the government, and we can just hope that
What were your concerns?
whatever comes out, we had a lot of concerns about the e-pharmacy part. Like they were giving a approval to the e-pharmacies without the checks and balances. So we had that issues, and we conveyed to the government that e-pharmacies cannot be allowed in this way. There have to be checks and balances, like there is for the offline pharmacies. Now you'll be surprised to know that the offline pharmacies have major checks and balances. When the DNC, when the drug departments come to inspect the premises, it's a tedious job to uh, show them all the documents and all the compliances, because there are so many. So, likewise, we just mentioned that the in the previous draft, the compliances and the checks and balances were less on the pharmacies, and we can just hope that the whatever the bill has been drafted now, final bill, it is in the interest of the patient security. It is also that patient security and the health of our citizens is the first, but should also be taking into consideration that uh, the amount of people that are employed in this industry, they are enormous. We are roughly, if you we calculate, we extrapolate, we are roughly 4 to 5, 5.5, 4.5 to 5 crore people of this country are dependent on this trade, and this trade is being spoiled by the people who are opening e-pharmacies, getting FDI, doing the cash burn, giving more discounts, which is not there in the supply chain. Any offline pharmacy does not have access to FDI, and they're burning
Do you
it,
think
and they are
discount should be allowed at all?
well.
E-pharmacies
It
offer
isn't.
discount.
It isn't actually. If you go through the PPR, pharmacy practice regulation,
Hmm.
it says very clear that the discounting, solicitation of the even advertising is not allowed by the pharmacies.
Right. Yeah.
So neither the discounts are. So they are not allowed by the PPR, pharmacy practice regulations. But well, in violation of all those regulations, these things are happening. And the reason why they say that discounts should not be allowed, and even the advertisements, is because medicine is a drugs is a very regulated field. You
Hmm.
know, like the NPPA, Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, they have set margins for every supply chain. So it does not happen that you have X number of margin and you can increase it to double or triple by whatever. It doesn't happen that way, and that margin is required for the smooth running of any operations of any establishment, which is of course the uh, salaries, the rent, the electricity bill, and stocking, the capital expense, and every other thing. So those are the reasons discounts are not allowed to be given on medicines, and so is not advertising.
I think I'm not sure how. Like I know that show cause notices have been issued to e-pharmacies, but I don't know. Do they include these allegations that they're giving out discounts and advertising? Are those usually among the contentions against the e-pharmacies?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. The show cause notices included these contentions. They were primarily on the basis of the High Court order, which has an injunction on the operations of e-pharmacies in absence of any license, which is a 2018 order. And I think the show cause, as per the media reports I read, it
Hmm.
was basically on the basis that there is no license for the online selling of drugs, and how are you selling? Please explain to us. That is it.
All right.
I think that was what I read in the media reports.
And I think the show cause notice is basically applied as a ban on these pharmacies, like e-pharmacies, to some extent, that you stop selling what you're selling unless you get the license. But I mean, how do you feel that there could be a better alternative to a ban on e-pharmacies? Do you find them to be effective? Because there is delay in implementation, as we all know. So,
Yes, I think that uh, e-pharmacies, offline and online, they can coexist. There's no doubt
hmm.
about that.
Hmm.
But there have to be proper regulations.
Hmm.
And what I mentioned about the predatory pricing right now,
Hmm.
that is a very big aspect. Now, it took me years to understand the predatory pricing business, because a normal general mind cannot comprehend that why would you sell in losses. But that's the way it works, and they sell in losses, and for the data points, that amount of customers do they acquire, and all those things which are far away from a general business mind. And these things probably also have to be included in the regulations, because if you want to coexist, then you need to have a space to coexist. Like recently, I remember CCI, Competition Commission of India, they came out with the uh, category of drugs which were sold online and offline, and the market share of the drugs. So primarily, if you see that the emergency medication were fulfilled by the offline people, and the long-term medication which you take for maybe your heart condition or diabetes, those were being fulfilled by the online players, because there's no emergency to it. You can order 5 days in advance and then get your medication and then use it for next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So you'll be surprised to know that 80% of the India's business of medicines were consisting of these drugs which are long-term use, and only 20% were used which were used for the short-term events. So if you see, what you do is basically that offline 1.2 million of us will fulfill only 20% of the drug requirement, whereas the 80% of drug requirements goes to the online people because they give discounts by burning the cash. So these questions have to be answered when regulations are being made, and they have to be considered. Otherwise, the possibility of coexistence is not possible, because then online will go and offline will finish. Online will survive and offline will finish.
Is there any particular state or region where you feel that they are sort of taking this issue, like handling this issue much more, much better than in other areas? Like you feel the
Well,
regulations.
I think recently we went to Karnataka, and Karnataka uh, mm, drug controller. We met them, and even met the Minister of Health and Family Welfare in Karnataka. And I think after that they did a lot of extensive work in Bangalore. They even issued some notices to the offline stores as well, who were displaying boards of discounts. And they are even working on a company which came to Shark Tank, which are selling medicines which without the proper packaging. They are opening the tablets and selling as the dosage in a small sachet, which is against the DNC Act. So I think Karnataka is doing well, and I think Delhi also is doing well. They are also trying to curtail the operations of the e-pharmacy, which is illegal. Whatever is illegal, they're trying to curtail. So Delhi is also working well, and I don't have too much of idea of any other state as such. But we don't listen to the news. News I've just Delhi we know firsthand, and Karnataka I read in the news, and of course went and met them, so I know a bit.
All right. So to summarize you, sorry. To summarize, I think the focus points that you feel should be for the e-pharmacies are first on licensing, uh, the pricing that is going on. What else would you like to be considered here?
So another very good thing which we have to consider is like prescription. Did we mention
Right.
prescription? So the prescription is the first and the primemost. First thing is the prescription. Like what you see right now is that when you go to a e-pharmacy to buy medication, you can just type the medication you need and say, I don't have a prescription. And somebody will call you. It might or might not be a doctor. It might be an operator. It might be a pharmacist. We don't know. And they will just confirm your name and say, have you ordered the medicine? You say yes, and they will make a prescription for it, and they will send you the medication. Now there is a some I'm not sure about the petitioner, but somebody has filed a case in the Gujarat High Court, wherein they have given the transcripts of communication with one of the e-pharmacies, one of the well-known e-pharmacies, where they ordered medication and somebody just called and said, "Hello, your name is this. You ordered medication? Yeah, fine. That is it. No other consultation." I have ordered medication myself, wherein somebody called me and he said, they called me about 10:30 in the night. So I just said that, is this the time for you to call me at night? Because this is too late. And the person said, sorry. And they cut their phone. And then instantly I got the message that your prescription has been made, your order has been made, the medicine will be dispatched next day. So this is the level of problems which we have with e-pharmacies. So this is the major concern which has to be considered.
All right. In terms of regulation, what do you think should be the focus point first? The bill that is likely to be tabled soon, or the rules should take a precedence here, the TNC rules?
Well, I think if the bill is tabled and passed, then of course it becomes an act, and then on basis of that you make the new rules.
Mhm.
And if it's for whatever reason it is not passed, we don't know. Then of course the current DNC Act and the rules thereunder can be modified to make.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
No, I think pretty much we've covered everything. The only thing which we say is that there's an injunction on the online selling of drugs, and sometimes we undermine the capability and the wisdom of our high courts of our country. Now, when our honorable high court has given the injunction notice on a particular activity, they have done so after taking into consideration a lot of factors. So we should respect that, every one of us, even our governments, even us as citizens, and as companies, as corporates also.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Yash, for joining us. This was
Pleasure.
quite an interesting conversation.
Pleasure.
Like we have said, the bill is set to be or likely to be tabled in this monsoon session of the parliament soon. Let's see what is going to happen over there. For
Yes.
our viewers over here, thank you for joining us and listening to us. For more information on what is happening on the e-pharma sector and the pharma sector, please do follow Media Now. Thank you everyone for joining us.